This is Sean Sullivan, and this is my first video on parent functions and transformations. So, parent functions are basically a family of functions that have no transformations and it's like basically a base function. So it could be called a base function. That's a easier kind of definition. And it gives like the graph. So it gives graph basic. So it gives graph basic shape and gives equation a pattern. So there are 4 parent functions. So the 4 parent functions are quadratics, absolute value, cubic, and square roots. Sorry for the barking. So these 4 are all parent functions. And then I'll start to explain what kind of graph they give and what equation they have. So I'll start with quadratic. So quadratic functions is of course a parent function, and its parent function is written as fx equals x squared. And then the graph of the parent, or let's say, so this is what would kind of means what would the graph normally look like, and what is like a commonly like seen as in the graph. So the graph for this parent is the normal graph looks like this when it's a quadratic function. So this is what the normal quadratic function graph looks like. So that's what the graph of the parent function is. So graph of parent. Another function that is in this parent functions is cubic. So I'll show you the cubic function. So the parent function is f(x) equals x third. And I would also like to note now that there are more functions, but these are just the 4 I'm going to go over. So equals x to the second, actually. And so the graph of this parent looks like this. It will look something like this direction. That's what most cubic functions will look like. Now I'll show you what a square root function looks like. So the parent function of a square root function is f x equals the square root of x. Hence, this is a good way to remember that it's a square root function. So, the graph of the parent looks like this. That's what the average square root function graph will look like. And now I'll show absolute value function. So the absolute value function. So the parent function is f x equals the absolute value of x. And then the graph of the parent looks like this. So those are the four parent functions that we're covering: the quadratics, the absolute value, the cubic, and the square roots. So these are their functions, and then these are their graphs of the parent. So next, I'll teach you guys what a transformation is. So transformation basically means to change. And this makes sense in this sense because we are changing. So because we are technically changing functions. We're changing functions from the parent function. So the four symbols used for transformations are H, K, this dash mark, and A. So, transformations are basically kind of really modifications to the parent function. So in transformations, we will kind of move, stretch, and reflect those initial parent functions. And it still maintains the base functionality, if that makes sense. So H, which is one of these four symbols that I'll be teaching y'all, means to move horizontally, or better known for you guys, left or right. And then K means to move vertically, or up and down. And then this dash mark means reflections. So this means it can reflect across either, and it will tell you either the X or Y axis. I'll show you real quick. So this would be a reflection across the Y axis. So let's say you had something that looked like this. You had points that looked like this. If you reflected that across the y-axis, you would get this. So that would be a reflection across the y-axis. Now, a reflection across the x-axis would look more like this. So if you had these points across the x-axis, a reflection across the x-axis would look like this. If that helps you guys see more sense out of it. And then the final term that we'll be using in transformation is A, which means vertical stretch. Vertical stretch. Which kind of means it's just getting taller vertically. And that is part 1 of my transformations and parent functions video.